Adams, thank you, I guess, initially for having us tonight. This is John Deere, so we've recruited a handful of individuals that you'll hear from today. You see on the screen, we'll have individuals give a quick overview of Deere, who we are, what we do. Talk a little bit about what a security career at Deere looks like, and then we'll have a panel discussion with students that have actually held internships or part-time student positions with us and talk a little bit about their experience. So again, Megan Adams, I work within global security at John Deere, specifically within the financial arms or banking portion of the business, as a security analyst within our risk and controls team. I am an Iowa State alum, been with Deere a little over 2.5 years. I suppose technically I'm a partial mid-career hire, so spent a little bit of time before that in the financial services industry, also within security. Shannon, do you want to go next? Quick introduction.
Yeah, I can. My name is Shannon Phillips. I am the lead for one of the cybersecurity teams we have at the research park in Ames. The team is vulnerability management, and we can talk a little bit more about what we do on my team. Quick background, I've been at Deere for just over 20 years, 21 years in March. I have had a pretty wide range of different positions. Been in this position for just about 3 years now.
Perfect. Mr. Goodrich.
Thank you, Megan. My name is David Goodrich. I'm the principal security engineer for cloud here at Deere, and I recently relocated to Ankeny, Iowa, so that when this all gets put back together, I can work with the cloud security team working out of our research park. Been with Deere for about 13 years now. Been in security for about 3.
Perfect. I know we have Mitch and Evan. I don't care who wants to go next.
I can go ahead.
Cool.
Hi guys.
Go for it.
I'm a junior here at Iowa State studying software engineering, and I interned at Deere over this past summer in their security operations center. So I got to do a lot of kind of hands-on work with incident analysis and things like that. So that was a lot of fun.
Perfect. And Evan?
All right, cool. Hi everyone. My name is Mitchell Noth. I'm a part-time student at the JD Tech and Innovation Center here in Ames. I've been with John Deere since last November. I'm on the software engineering team, so I work with AWS and the cloud, and also enabling APIs for our third-party vendors and dealers that we work with. Oh, and I'm also a super senior, and I'm graduating in December with software engineering and a minor in cybersecurity.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch. All right. Well, I'll kind of turn it over from there. I think, Shannon, you're going to take the lead if I remember correctly. Overview?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So are you going to drive, Megan? Just want me to yell when you move slides?
Yep, that sounds perfect.
Okay. All right. So like Megan said, yeah, we'll give a quick overview here. A few things we might spend a little bit more time on. I think a lot of these things probably won't be a surprise to anybody, but maybe a few things are. So I'll go through some of these slides and we'll talk through it, and then we'll talk a little bit about cyber within Deere and probably specifically at Ames. And then, like Megan said, we'll open up for a panel. So starting out, I think this is probably not a surprise. John Deere is a world leader in providing products and services. One of our big mottos is that we're committed to those that are linked to the land, and that we're providing and ensuring that they're successful. Quick point about our heritage. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it really all starts back in 1837 with John Deere, who he pioneered a new steel plow that wouldn't stick to the prairie ground, and so that a farmer could it was stainless and it wouldn't, versus the iron plows in that that rich soil wouldn't stick to it, and so a farmer could go through and plow a lot faster. So neat little history tidbit if you didn't know that. Next slide, Megan. So, at high level, these are a few of the slides we'll talk about. So, John Deere's business, ag and turf. I think everyone's familiar with that. That's what you think of when you think of John Deere. Construction and forestry. We'll talk a little bit about some of our financial services, power systems, and then, parts. John Deere Reman is pretty interesting, and we'll talk for a minute or two about that. And then we'll talk about Intelligent Solutions Group and JDES. We'll probably spend a few minutes just kind of giving some overviews of IASG, which is short for Intelligent Solutions Group. So next, agriculture and turf division. So this is probably what you think of when you think of John Deere. So you see the big tractors, big combines, the big pieces of agricultural machinery that Deere is known for. So and then on top of that is the turf division, which they're kind of combined, but so turf would be things like your lawnmowers, your gators, some of the small utility tractors. So at a high level, some of the major platforms we have, harvesting platform, which of course is combines. Then we have the tractor platform, which you see these two here. We have crop care, which is really seeding, tillage, applying fertilizer, and those types of things. Turf and utility, which is, like I said, it's your lawnmowers. We have some pretty high-end lawnmowers that are used at golf courses, and they'll run more than a lot of cars. And then we have our hay and forage, which is things like balers and smaller tractors to help out those hay and forage farmers. Go ahead, Megan. I guess one other point too is for ag and turf, and even for construction and forestry, we have a pretty wide worldwide footprint. So if you look at both CNF and ag and turf, we have Germany, which is where most of our tractors for the European and Middle Eastern market are made. We have Mannheim and Zweibrück and Bruxelles. We have factories in Brazil, India, China, France, Argentina. Construction and forestry, we have a facility in Finland, a couple in Russia. So we have a very large and worldwide footprint. So construction and forestry, once again, this is it kind of it states the obvious. This is our construction and forestry division. We build excavators, motor graders, skid steers, which is what we call a skid loader. And then on the forestry side, we also have timber harvesters, log loaders, that type of thing. Go ahead, Megan, please. Financial services, you may not have been familiar with this, but like a lot of the large automobile companies, like Ford and Chrysler and GM, we have our own financing arm. So our main office is in Johnston, Iowa. We also have a footprint, I believe, in Luxembourg and maybe a couple other places, maybe in Madison, Wisconsin. And this is just similar to GMAC or Ford Credit. A lot of our equipment's pretty expensive, and so we also want to provide that option for dealers and our customers to be able to finance through us as well. So John Deere Power Systems. This is really our engines and our drivetrains. So transmissions and axles would be the drivetrain products. Most of John Deere produces its own engines for most of the ag and construction divisions. Some of the smaller vehicles, not necessarily, but anything that's large are things that would be produced by John Deere, by our engine works. We have engine facility in Waterloo. We have one in France. We have in Mexico. We have one down in Argentina. So once again, a pretty worldwide footprint. We also have an OEM business, so we'd be selling, marine engines for boats, gensets. I know one of Power Systems' big customers used to be Kohler. So if you see those big Kohler boxes, those are gensets that there's a good chance they were produced by John Deere. They have a Deere engine in them. So go ahead, Megan. Worldwide parts, once again, as it says here, we have a pretty large global footprint and a large parts division. it's important, especially, this time of year, you have a farmer out in the field, they're combine and they can't lose any time. So if something breaks down, we want to make sure that we get them parts to get them back up and running. So we have a distribution center in Milan, Illinois. We also have one in Germany. We call it EPDC for Europe Parts Distribution Center. We have some smaller ones in Brazil, Moscow, Stockholm, Sweden, as well as throughout different states within the U.S., Colorado, Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia. And as it says here, about 800,000, over 800,000 unique part numbers. And one of the things, at least in North America, is if, like I said, this time of year, planting season, if a farmer is out in the field and they break down, we can usually get an emergency order as long as it's received by 5 p.m. that day, we can get it to them hopefully that day or early the next day by 8 a.m. to get it to the dealer, then they can go out and get that farmer up and running. Go ahead, Megan. Megan, please, next one. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong screen. No, one. Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No. John Deere Reman, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I could talk about this a lot because I actually was involved in a lot of the manufacturing processes here, so I won't get too much into it, but this is really cool. We have a facility in Springfield, Illinois, and in Edmonton, Canada. Springfield, we remanufacture engine and engine components, and in Edmonton, it's drivetrain components. So it's those transmissions and axles. And what they do is we bring in these old, they call them cores, these old engines, maybe from up to 30 years ago, bring them in, we tear them apart, we remanufacture them down to original factory specs, and then we send them back out. And it's great because it's cheaper for us. We can get something faster to the customer. A lot of the PDC orders, a lot of these engines will be a PDC order that I mentioned earlier, where a farmer, they're down, their engine blew up, get me a remand one as fast as you can. And one of the cool things about it is there's 85% of the resources used to make an original engine, for example, are not needed in the remand process. So if you think about a big block, that takes a lot of energy to mine and to do the casting and machine it. A lot of that, it isn't needed in the remanufacturing process. So it's great from both a profitability standpoint as well. It's good from an environmental standpoint as well. Go ahead, Megan. And then this is John Deere Electronic Solutions. We have a couple factories that design and build boards. So basically the computer boards, the electronic boards, and you see an example here. We don't manufacture our own chips, but we put these boards together. There's one up in Fargo, Minnesota, and South Dakota, North Dakota, sorry. And then we have one down in Mexico as well, in Torreon, Mexico. And like I said, this is pretty cool. They produce a lot of the different electronics for some of our factories that are putting these things in their engine control units and those types of things. So go ahead, Megan. And this one, we'll spend I had a couple slides on this. So this is our Intelligence Solutions Group. You'll hear it referred to IASG within Deere. This is located, we have our main hub in, it used to be Urbandale, now it's Johnston, right? The new location's Johnston, right? So it's here in the Des Moines area. We also have a facility in Kaiserslautern, Germany. And we have a few other remote facilities, but those are the two main ones. And IASG provides technologies in the areas of guidance, displays, telematics, agronomic decision support. So it's what all is encompassed when you hear the phrase precision ag. And so if you look on the screen here, these displays, these are one of the things that IASG develops, and they develop the software, the hardware for them. John Deere Electronic Solutions would provide a lot of the electronics for these. And what they do is it's all the operator station, auto track. So it's all the GPS and the auto track functionality that allows a farmer to plug in the information, plug in the route they want the tractor or combine to take, and it'll go on its own. And what's happening on these displays is this is collecting real-time data. So in this case, it looks like someone's probably planting or applying some type of an application, and it's collecting that data. If they were harvesting, it would be collecting that yield data. They kick it up to the cloud, which is it's all on AWS, or most of it is. And then later, that grower can go into our portal called Operations Center, and they can utilize different applications, like one called Field Analyzer, where they can look at their data and they can compare their planting data with their harvesting data and use that to make better decisions about what they want to do next year to improve their yields. They can form relationships on Operations Center with agronomists and dealers, almost like Facebook, where you can become you can have a relationship or a friend with an org, and then those agronomists can help them make better decisions. So there's a lot of technology here. Go ahead, next one, Megan. Couple examples. This is a very timely one. If you look at this, this time of year, if you're driving around Ames or around the Des Moines area, you're going to see this a lot. And the key takeaway on this is that tractor pulling the grain cart does not have to be actually manually driven by someone. There's got to be somebody in the cab. But what happens is once they get in line with that combine, they can connect via Wi-Fi, and that combine's control area network will control that tractor to make sure it's going at the right speed. That way you don't have to be talking and someone constantly hitting the accelerator, changing gears or anything like that. So it makes it a lot easier for the operator running the combine as well as the tractor to be able to stay in sync. So if you see that this time of year, that's something that's probably going on in that situation. This is just kind of an example of what the field analyzer looks like on the screen. As you can see, what those could be is that's that data captured by the combine, for example, and this grower could be looking at each of these little squares, which represent a small portion of the field, a foot by a foot or even less. And they're using that to get that very granular yield data or planting data or seeding data to then be able to use that to make decisions so that they can maximize their yield, minimize their input, that type of thing. And then last but not least, I wanted to illustrate this because a couple years ago, 3 years ago now, John Deere purchased a company called Blue River. It's out in California. And the key takeaway from this is that they utilize machine learning to when a farmer's out in the field, the farmer will train the application of the technology to be able to identify a buttonweed versus a soybean, for example. And so it will only spray the weed and not the soybean. And so it gets you away from that field level one size fits all application for the whole field and down to the plant level. So obviously it reduces input costs. It reduces the amount of herbicide or pesticide someone has to spray. So it's better for the environment. So this is another good example of some of the technology we have at Deere that I think a lot of people aren't familiar with. And I would say, and I don't know, Megan, do you want to open it up for questions? You don't want to wait till we get through everything?
We can pause here, I think, for questions if there are any. I do have the chat window open. So this kind of wraps up our summary of Deere and Company, and Shannon went through a lot in the last 20 minutes. So are there any questions on who we are as a company and what we do on a day-to-day before we dive into what does a security or a cyber role look at Deere?
Last week,
look like at Deere?
To go over how the computers talk to each other.
We don't bite, I promise.
So what?
All right.
Okay.
I'll take silence as a no for now. Go ahead.
I have a couple more slides I'll go through, then I think I'll turn it over to probably David.
Yeah.
But one thing, as a good segue now into the cybersecurity realm, one thing to think about is all this technology I just talked about, it requires that someone protects it. And so that's where we come in. And one of the things that you look at with some of these applications, some of this data, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of these tractors and combines they're mobile networks that have multiple networks. And so we have to protect that. We have to protect our operations center, field analyzer as an example. So that's where we come in doing things like, vulnerability scanning, pen testing. A lot of this stuff is on AWS, which is where David's team comes in. And real quick, Megan, do you want to go back to that previous one real quick?
Yeah.
Please, yeah. So I just want to point out, this was a couple of years ago. We, the cyber team in Ames actually took a visit to Jensen Test Farms, which is outside of Bondurant and Elkhart, and we actually went through and rode in some of these tractors and combines and got a shot at actually getting exposed to some of this technology, because that's one thing we try to do is really keep the cyber folks and students in general as tied in with Deere as possible, so that you don't feel like you're on an island and you're just sitting here in front of a computer. We want you engaged and exposed to Deere's overall purpose in what we do. So sorry, go ahead, Megan.
No, you're good.
So, any questions about any of that? I know I'm trying to get through these. I don't want to take up too much time because I want to make sure that we have enough time for the students to discuss things. Okay.
I think we're
Just
good.
yell if you do. So, like I said, I'm the lead for vulnerability management. What does our team do? At a high level, we identify vulnerabilities in Deere's environment, either through scanning tools or manual techniques. Sometimes it's a pen test. Sometimes it's just digging around and finding things. We have third parties that do some of that for us as well. We assign vulnerabilities and report them and make sure that they get to the right teams, and we get visibility to the right levels of leadership. We provide some analysis and help assessing risk for some of these vulnerabilities. We manage the exception and false positive process. So as you can imagine, sometimes people don't think it's a vulnerability, or they think that it should be an exception. It's not a high enough risk. So we have to do that analysis and manage that process. We do some manual pen testing. And then also, just in general, we'll provide some consultation and advice on how to remediate vulnerabilities for some teams that have some issues or some questions. So I think with that, I'm actually done talking. So go ahead. You're up there. Go ahead.
I guess that's me, and I try and find the mute button again. Like I said earlier, my name is David Goodrich. I'm the principal security engineer for cloud at Deere. And what do we do? So we have a team in Milan, Illinois, part of the Quad Cities, about 7 full-timers there. And then a team in Ames, Iowa at the research park. I think we have about 8 students that work with us part-time. And then another 1, 2, 4, or I guess I'm 5 full-timers working out of that office in the research park. So what do we do for Deere? So we're focused on the security of our cloud infrastructure. So we're a big AWS shop. We're getting started on Azure. This is from an AWS Days presentation, so Azure didn't get mentioned. It was kind of a dirty word for a couple of days. But we also assist people with securing their Azure resources. We enforce Deere security standards in the cloud. So we've got a policy and architecture group within global IT security that defines what those standards should be for Deere infrastructure. And we're responsible for enforcing compliance with those via user education, via automation, and things like that. We call ourselves the service gatekeepers. There are some services that we won't let people use at AWS or Azure, and we make sure that is a true statement. And then we also manage A&A, authentication and authorization, who you are and what you have access to inside the cloud. And that we spend a lot of our cycles on automation to keep control of that because it's so critically important for the cloud. But that automation that lets the developers run without us getting in their way too much or more than we have to. We also manage security infrastructure automation and support. So there are some tools that support, say, Shannon's group Qualys will help with some of that infrastructure because we have that cloud background. Or we'll help the Cybersecurity Defense Center, our Security Operations Center, manage AWS security events because, again, we have that background. We can help train those teams to handle those responses. Next slide, Megan. Just to get a perspective here, why didn't my slide advance? I'm looking at my local copy. Just about to scold you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm having a heck of a day. So for perspective, right, you may have gotten an AWS account in the free tier and played around with it, maybe launched a couple Lambdas, things like that. I don't know. I don't know what kids do for fun in college anymore. It's been a long time. But for Deere, we have 400 AWS accounts, and that number is growing literally by the day. I said we're the service gatekeepers, but there are over 100 AWS services in use at Deere. Maybe not by a lot of people, or maybe not by any more than one team, but there's somebody using over 100 services at Deere. And 19 petabytes of data are stored in AWS S3, which is their object store for files. Every week, there's 1,000 developers at Deere. This isn't people logging into applications hosted at AWS. This is people logging into AWS to manage Deere's infrastructure. There's 1,000 people that log into AWS every week for Deere. Our policies in AWS, which is, again, the authentication and authorization component, there's over 1,000 changes made to those every week, and it's all processed by our team, happily, primarily by automation. But there is some human component there as well. And then for perspective, over 150,000 EC2s or virtual machines are created and destroyed at the cloud. So the idea here is you have a workload, you turn on a computer, you do your work, and rather than letting the VM sit there and wait, right, or if you've got a server in your apartment, just letting it sit and idle and wait for the next workload, you can destroy that, right, and not pay for it. And then when you have more work, you just create another one because they're ephemeral and they're free, right, when they're quiet. And we log security events at AWS, over 35 billion events, API actions performed in a week, and that's 14 terabytes of log data that we ingest in this Splunk. Question, for your 400 AWS accounts, does John Deere utilize AWS orgs and separations of dev, stage, and prod? Yes, absolutely. And we manage our A&A accordingly, right? So we're more permissive so we go from sandbox, devil, to qual, to cert, to prod, and everybody's got their own names for them, so don't get too excited about what we call them. But the idea here is that in sort of a sandbox or devil environment, we give humans broad control of what they do in the cloud. And by the time we get to production, we want to make sure that only CI/CD or continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines like a Jenkins or a Drone or a Travis CI are the things that are working in the cloud for us. We don't have humans logging in and saying, oh, I need to change this one setting on my VM, right? That's not a pattern that works when you're creating and destroying 150,000 VMs in a week. So absolutely. I think that was it for cloud security. Any other questions? Slide. We lost. That's all right. I think I can try this. I'll try this one. We were going to have somebody. We were going to have somebody from the Security Operations Center with us, and we had a family emergency. But this is a brief slide about the Cybersecurity Defense Center, or the Security Operations Center is sort of the industry parlance, or a fusion center, I think is the cool thing now. Look at the GEMS title.
I don't know what it is.
It's all good. There's a handful of areas here. So the primary one that people think of when they talk about security operations is the Security Operations Center, which is that big green bar in the center, right? So that's, I have a virus on my computer, what do I do, right? Or massive phishing campaign detected by our vendor, or indicator of compromise from AWS Guard Duty that says one of our EC2s is mining Bitcoin, hypothetically. All of those alerts come to the Security Operations Center, and they're responsible for triaging them, determining whether or not they're real or a false positive, determining whether it's a priority or if it should just be put on the back burner to be managed by another team or another shift. Or if it's a real, genuine security emergency, they run the show. They stand up the war room, they have the incident response playbooks, and they mitigate the risk to Deere by bringing in resources they need or solving it themselves. So that's sort of the biggest piece people think of when they think of security operations, but there are three other parts of it at Deere. So one is e-discovery, and that is legal. I don't know what else to call it except to say it's legal research in a lot of parts, right? So if you've got an employee that's involved in litigation or HR has questions about something someone's doing with their email, they come to the e-discovery team and they have the tools necessary to put mailboxes on legal hold, recover files from hard drives, things of that nature. So literal forensics, right, from that perspective. Insider Threat is a newer program at Deere. We spend a lot of time in security thinking about the evil people on the outside that want to hack into our systems and break through our firewalls and decrypt our files and sell them to the Russians. Less appreciated is this notion of an employee that's not happy with their place in the world, or someone that knows they're leaving for a competitor, or just plain old wasn't thinking it right? And so how do we know when information that's critical to John Deere takes a walk? Who did it? How did it get out? And what can we do to mitigate those risks? And so that's what Insider Threat looks at. And the final piece of security operations at Deere is what they're calling cybersecurity engineering. And these are more of a traditional on-prem function, right? But we're looking at managing a firewall, right? So only traffic that we expect to come in comes to places that we expect it to and nowhere else, right? Proxies manage outbound traffic so we can filter what people look at Deere while they're at work. Deere is a pretty liberal place to work, but not that liberal. And so proxies are really important. And then remote access. So especially now, while we're all working everywhere except in office, these are your VPNs and your VPN alternative solutions that let you have access to the internal networks in a secure way while you're not at a Deere facility. Next slide. Shannon, you want to take this one? I don't know the area well enough yet.
Yeah, I can do that. So the picture is actually our sprayer lab, which is just south of Airport Road. They're pretty close to the airport. And this is really more of an engineering innovation center where a lot of the product engineers go and they work on. It's a sprayer lab. So there's a big there's a lot of people from Des Moines Works, which in Ankeny, which they have the sprayers and the cotton pickers and that type of thing. So that's what that is. The actual research park, the office that we work at, is there. I think it's that star there, right, Megan? Yeah. So it's just right
That's
there.
correct.
Yeah, it's just right there at the research park, at that corner there of University and Airport Road, technically on that North Loop Drive. So it's just a stone's throw from campus, and there's actually a bus. There's a bus stop right there that a lot of some of the freshmen we had that didn't have cars would just take the bus and they could walk to and from the bus stop. Go ahead, Megan.
So I'm going to pause there really quick. Shannon and David did an excellent job outlining the teams, most of the teams that we have in AIM. So again, that's vulnerability management, cloud security, and then we will have positions for the Cybersecurity Defense Center there as well. There is also a JDF, John Deere Financial IT development team up in Ames as well that was not included in here. Again, they focus a lot on cloud API development and enablement for the entire John Deere Financial organization. And they have, I believe, 5 students up there right now with a full-time manager. So those are teams that, again, sit at the research park facility. There's obviously other teams within security as well. So I mentioned I'm part of risk and compliance. There are individuals that work specifically for security risk or cyber risk, and I'm one of those. We have a handful of individuals across the organization that work in an area we called security by design, working to instill security practices and policy within our development, making sure we've got the appropriate configurations included up front, so we're not going back and identifying those vulnerabilities that Shannon's team works very effortlessly to mitigate. And then we have a large team that works in access management and various authorization, and they help manage everything from on-premise to some pieces of the cloud as well. So I think, Shannon, David, any other things you would add to that? Any team I missed?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick. I know we should have a posting out on SciHire now. So I think I have 3 positions to fill that are students. I think Cloud has 2 or 3 or 4, a few.
Yep.
And then
JDFIT
the
will
SOC, they have
have
2. Yeah, the
Yep,
cybersecurity.
SOC has
they have
2,
2. Yeah.
and then JDFIT will have 3 or 4 as well.
Yeah.
Mitchell says 4. Fantastic.
4? There you go.
I think I counted the fingers right.
Perfect. And if
So
you're not, go ahead. I'm sorry.
question in
There's
the
a
chat.
question in
Nicholas,
there.
do you have red team or
Yeah.
pen testing focused stuff? Shannon, take it away.
We do. We do. So part of we have 2 or 3 different cases of this. So part of one of the teams that Megan mentioned, Security by Design, they have rules where part of that team is called secure programming, and so depending on the application and the risk and the urgency or the importance of that application, there's certain steps that have to happen. So a static code scan, for example, a dynamic web scan. And then depending on if it's considered a critical app, then there's supposed to be a web app pen test completed on it. We don't do that 100%. We're still not mature enough. That is something that my team does do some of. We don't do a lot of it, but we do some of it. And then there's cases too where we will have outside vendors do some of that for us. And then we also have cases where, the vulnerability management team, my team will do some, it's not really a manual web app pen test, but we do what we call like some threat hunting, where we'll go out and just look for some vulnerabilities, look for some things. We have to do some confirmation of vulnerabilities where, like I mentioned before, an infrastructure team might say, this isn't a real vulnerability. And we'll say, yes, it is. And then there'll be that debate, and occasionally we'll have to prove it to them. So we do some of that. And there's also some things, some engagements we call purple team, where you'll take someone from my team or a couple people from my team, and we'll set up scenarios where we come in and we try to break in, and then the SOC, the Cybersecurity Defense Center, as we call it, Deere, will attempt to find it to see if it alerts on it. And then you'll have maybe some other infrastructure people involved. A lot of times it's on the cloud, so people from David's team will get involved, and we'll include other development teams maybe sometimes. So it's a big engagement to get everybody involved to where we can go through the process, almost like a CDC, really, where we're going through and doing that process. And then hopefully we're getting alerts on it. And if we're not, then we try to understand, why did you not catch us doing this? So we have all those different types of engagements. Yes.
And what's more fun about that than a CDC is that not only does the red team take it to the blue team, like always, but they tell you what happened, and you understand and you learn where you went wrong and how you can do better next time. And so it's what I like about Advice to CDC, to that point, Shannon. It's not a competition. The idea here is that everyone gets to learn something that they didn't know before. I think that's important. An excellent point, William. Thank you.
Yeah.
We all saw the story about the pen testers that got arrested for breaking into the courthouses in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
That thing. Any other questions while we're all here?
So we did have someone from the product engineering side asked a couple individuals on my team to do a drone pen test, and we're going to post it on Yammer for those of you that didn't see it, but it's pretty interesting because we have drone technology that we're working on, and there's a concern about someone breaking into a drone, breaking into one of our vehicles, and just kind of like the concerns with automobiles. We don't want someone taking control of it, so we did that. It was kind of interesting and fun. So we get those types of things occasionally.
Awesome. Well, let's transition. We have maybe 20 minutes before the top of the hour. This is our panel discussion. So as I previously mentioned, I think we've had a couple others join. We've got Mitchell, we had Evan, Vignesh, and Vatsal. Do you guys want to quickly introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about the teams you worked on? I don't care who goes first.
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay. Yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Vatsal, and I've been working with Deere since March of 2018. Started as an intern in the cloud security team, and most of my job is working with AWS services and creating Python scripts for a lot of automation and identity and access management. And I also got a chance to uh, attend the interns conference in 2018, which was a really good experience to meet a lot of interns from all over the US and visit the headquarters in Moline.
Perfect.
I can go next.
Go for it.
So my name is Vignesh. I'm a senior studying computer engineering, graduating this semester. I started working at Deere in November of 2018. And originally I was on an ISG embedded systems team in Ames office, which no longer exists, but that was like a pen testing team specifically for embedded software. And one of those screens that you saw on the tractors and those photos that Shannon talked about. And then recently, I transitioned to the cloud security team as well since January of this year. And like Vatsal said, my position is also mostly working in AWS and Microsoft Azure with a variety of AWS services and Python scripting and working on scripting for like compliance standards and such, just like what David talked about on that cloud security slide. So yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask, and then we can kind of roundtable. At least if like two of you want to respond, if all of you want to respond, that's totally fine too. We'll get through that. Again, if there's any questions, feel free to chime in or include us in the chat, and we'll go from there. All right, so first question is, what is a day like in the life of a remote worker, part-time student or intern?
So I can answer that one a little bit from my perspective.
Yeah.
My internship over the summer was my first time ever working remote, so it was kind of a completely new experience for me. And thankfully, Deere did a very good job of kind of welcoming me into that. My team did a good job of helping me become accustomed to it. But I think, it's a very major shift from what many of us are used to, just because of the level of communication that's required. You have to be much more purposeful in the way that you communicate with your coworkers, because it's much easier to get on the wrong page and not even realize it. So that was definitely one of the skills that I learned being remote at Deere over the summer, is being able to communicate very, very clearly and very efficiently in that remote setting. And I'm very grateful for that, because I think it's helped a lot with online classes this semester as well. So that was one big thing for me.
Awesome.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to build off of that and just kind of talk about the part-time experience. So Deere requires part-time students to at least work about 10 hours a week. And, being in school and graduating with my senior classes, it gets kind of hard. So it's actually been really nice being online and virtual because my hours are even more flexible than in the past. Because before I would have to drive to the office and then go to on campus, go to my classes, but now I could just simply do all of that from one desktop in my bedroom. So that's what I've noticed, which is a big plus in my book.
Awesome. Vignesh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like specifically for cloud security team, working remote is pretty easy, and it was like a seamless transition when we started earlier in the previous semester. Mainly because when we are part time, it's not like we're like tasked with a specific work, and there's a deadline on when we need to finish that. There's a lot of like passing off work going on. So if I'm on in the morning and I work on some code and I have to get off in the afternoon to go to a class, then I can just we use something called FlowDoc where we post our updates and also Git obviously for code, and so somebody else can just pull from that and start working off what I've done, and we make sure to keep everyone updated on the team, like how far we are on a specific task. So that way, it's not like, okay, if I can't get on Thursday because I have a lot of classes and they need something to be done by that day, it's not like it never gets done. There's a lot of collaboration and paired programming going on our team. So working remote really isn't too big of an issue, I would say. The communication is still at a pretty high level as it was when we were in the office.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add to that. So there's a lot of flexibility offered during our semesters. As it is remote, there's even more flexibility now. But if the full timers are always willing to help, you can just set up a meeting with someone, and they will always be able to help you if you feel left behind as you're not working 40 hours a week. So yeah.
Perfect.
And I wanted to chime in just one more time and maybe talk a little bit about the difference between some of those part-time student positions and the summer internship.
Yeah, go
For me, over the summer, it was a little bit more structured. Obviously, John Deere works around your schedule quite a bit when you're working during the school year. But over the summer, you get that opportunity to work, a full 8-hour day, which is kind of nice. Being able to wake up at the same time and have your schedule planned out as well. So if you are interested in like the summer internships, those do have kind of more of that standard 8-hour format. So
Perfect. All right, next question. What have you learned thus far that you think will help you most in the future? Whether it be a skill set, a tool, something new within a language that you can transition to schoolwork, whatever that may be. What have you learned?
I can talk about that.
Yeah, go for it.
I think one of the things I find most valuable in my experience is the experience that I've gotten with AWS since I've joined the cloud security team. I think it's a pretty unique experience that an intern or part-time student gets to have this much involvement within AWS and work with so many services. Because if you did work at a different company and work with AWS, it might only be for 3 months in the summer. But since I am a part-time student, I got both the full summer as well as part-time during the year, and because of that, I think I've gotten a lot of experience already in school, even before I've graduated. And I think that can really translate into the job, whether you're going to pursue a full-time job at John Deere, working with AWS, or apply elsewhere and such. So I think that experience is really valuable, and I find that to be pretty unique. Not a lot of students get to have that in their second or third year of college or whenever you join. So
Perfect.
yeah, kind of along those same lines, I think that there is definitely like a lot of technical experience that comes from working in cyber at Deere that really just isn't covered in a lot of classes. Even having taken cybersecurity classes here at Iowa State, actually working in cybersecurity, it's kind of a whole different game. So getting experience doing that, like actually responding to incidents, getting used to
seeing what the workflow of an analyst looks like and how they deal with daily threats is really, really interesting. And I think it's something that I will definitely be using in the future. Maybe not in college, but out of college whenever I get my first job. So that's really exciting to know that, I already have a little bit of experience with that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can talk about some of the skills that are already coming in handy
Sure.
since I've started working at John Deere. So learned about a lot of service and skills in AWS, and we've already been using some of those skills in senior design project for my last semester, which is really good. With some skills, we are also learning some software workforce skills like agile methodologies, which is an important thing if you go full time as a software engineer. And yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Vattel, there's a question there with what was your senior design project, or what is it?
So it's actually we're developing an iOS app. And for the backend, we are actually using AWS as I have gained some skills in AWS by working at John Deere. They're doing a lot of authentication stuff in the background or for the backend in AWS.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna transition to probably our last question that we'll have time for. What has been your favorite part about working at Deere for Deere?
I could go ahead and take this one. So
Go for it.
for me, I'm obviously majoring in software engineering, but with my minor, I've never had any professional experience before. So I thought it was such a cool experience to actually take 20% of my time during the summer to actually work with the Insider Cybersecurity Defense Center and actually build policies out there that will detect insider threat activity. And it was just a really neat experience to be detecting stuff inside of the cloud and utilizing AWS tools and whatnot. So I think that was definitely one of my favorite things so far at Deere, for sure.
Awesome.
I think one thing that I really enjoyed, even with it being remote, was kind of the team atmosphere. Just being able to feel comfortable going to any of your team members and asking them a question, and knowing that they're going to give you the best answer they can possibly give or direct you to someone who will. And a lot of the time, even just reaching out to people that aren't on your team or you don't really know, and they're just so open to answer your questions and help you out, which is really, really nice, especially in an internship, because you just get to learn that much faster. So I think that was my favorite part.
Good. Always like to hear that.
Yeah, I'd also like to add to that. I really enjoy the kind of the team culture. I've only been on the team since like January, and for most of that, it was like over the quarantine and in the summer when it was remote. But despite that, I've really gotten to know everybody on the team, and there's no like like stigma like, oh, you're a student and you don't know as much. You're really like treated as if you were basically a full timer as well, especially in the summer when you're working those 40 hours. So yeah, just kind of like reiterate what Evan said. Like when you're going to full timers to ask questions, like specifically coding questions and stuff, or if you need to rope them in for a meeting to help out with something, they're really helpful and really open to helping you out. There's no like, I never feel nervous about asking for help or anything like that. So it's a very comfortable environment, and you really feel like you're treated as another full-time team member. So I like that a lot.
Wonderful.
And one of my favorite things is that mostly during the summer when we're working full time, there are a lot of intern events. Especially, not this year because of the current conditions, but previous summers there were a lot of events where we went to tour the headquarters. I also got a chance in my first year to go to attend the Black Hat event sponsored by John Deere, which was really great.
Awesome.
And there were we have chances to attend a lot of AWS days and workshops where the team go. You can go with the team, which is really great.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us pretty much to the top of the hour. Shannon, David, any other closing comments you would like to make?
No, well, yeah, a couple. I won't take too long. I'm sorry,
You're
but
good. You're
I
good.
think, number one, if you get nothing out of this, just I think it's good to I hope you realize. I know we went through it fast, especially the business stuff, but Deere is more than just an iron company. We don't just produce combines and tractors and that's it. Obviously, we do that, but like I said, a lot of our platforms that the technology is integrated into it, and we couldn't do what we do without it. So combines, tractors are little mini computer networks. We have a lot of technology. So we really think of us as much as a technology company as an iron company. And I guess, like I said, we have some positions getting posted this fall, so keep an eye out for those. And I'm glad to hear what everyone said regarding how they feel, because I know personally, I definitely, our team, and I know the cloud team, we make a concerted effort to treat students really as if you're a full-time employee. Obviously, during the year, there's some things that restrict that, but as a general rule, we don't have intern work and full-time work. It's everyone, to the degree possible, does the same. So I think that's that. So I'm glad to hear everyone say that. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. No, we have too much work to do to treat differently, to be frank. I learn a lot from the students that we have on our team too, which I actually really appreciate. But no, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the opportunity, and keep an eye out. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. I would just second, third all of those comments. I don't think I mentioned this at the very beginning, but I help coordinate a number of presentations across campus, such as this one, and a number of presentations that actually happen within other classes as well, within like College of Business and the College of Engineering. So if you ever have questions about topics you're interested in hearing more about, again, this was more general overview. We have a number of presentations we bring to campus periodically. We love interacting with all of you students, and obviously this is new and different and challenging for us as well, but appreciate you having us. If you've got any questions, we'll hang around for a couple seconds or a couple minutes here. Feel free to unmute yourself and we'll talk there. Otherwise, thanks again, and please do not hesitate to reach out if you've got general questions or questions about the positions. We're happy to answer that and help in any way that we can. Nick, anything else from you?
Not in particular. Thank you guys for presenting this. Really well done.
Absolutely. Alrighty, well, as I said, we'll hang on for just another minute here, but we hope you all have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.